At 19 years old, I didn't want to live anymore. Hey everybody, my name is Rob and I'm an addict. And I'm really grateful to be here with you guys today. I also want to thank the Inner Fix for allowing me to share my experience, strength, and hope. You know, something interesting happens in life when the process of recovery really starts to take hold. The topic tonight is recovery is my responsibility, and that's something I've had to learn over and over again. Sometimes I forget how old I am. Sometimes I forget how long I've been here. I'll sit in my seat and start sharing and feel like I'm a 19-year-old kid who just got clean. But the reality is, I'm 45 years old, and I celebrated 26 years clean this past September. And this program has radically changed my life. It didn't just make my life better, it gave me a life. But I can tell you something about the beginning. There was a difference between trying to get clean and actually getting clean. Those were two very different things for me. When I was 19, I didn't want to stop using drugs because I didn't like them. I wanted to stop because the fucking consequences had destroyed me. I was in so much pain that I had actually tried to kill myself. And for a little context, I grew up with some of the people in this room. We went to school together. On the outside, I looked like a kid who had it all going for him. I was a high academic achiever. People thought I had a future. But inside, I always felt completely different. Drugs didn't start because I sat down one day and made some grand decision to become a fucking addict. It was simpler than that. The person I was, the way I felt about myself, the value I believed I had, that person was always looking for a way out of the feelings inside him. And eventually, drugs became that way out. They were my pain reliever. But it led me to a place where I was completely broken. I didn't want to live anymore. Waking up dope sick every morning, that was hell. Being miserable every day with no clue how to live with drugs or without them, that was hell too. I had lost hope and just wanted this vicious cycle to end. I remember sitting on my couch one day, staring out the window. I had already stopped using for a little while. My car was sitting right outside. I had a license, and my fucked up brain said I could get in that car and go get drugs anytime I wanted. And somebody had told me something in early recovery. Play the tape. This is meant to remind you of what it was like when you're out there in the midst of the battle. So I played the tape. None of the scenes were memorable and had actually scared and disgusted me. I was a fucking mess. So I thought, okay, I go get high. For a little while, I feel whatever the hell I want to feel, or don't feel anything at all. But then what? And that damn then what is where responsibility begins. Because when you're trapped in the obsession to use, that obsession is relentless. Every second, every minute, every day, I wanted to use constantly. So in the beginning, my recovery looked really simple. Sometimes it meant just sitting on my couch and playing the tape all the way through. Sometimes it meant going to an outpatient to get help. Sometimes it meant calling my sponsor and allowing him to talk sense into my head. Sometimes it meant talking to other addicts in recovery. And when I started coming to meetings, people gave me suggestions. Back then, they talked about the 8 suggestions. There wasn't a 9th like today. Simple stuff. Go to meetings, get a sponsor, get involved, get a commitment. So I started doing that. I made coffee. I greeted people at the door. I showed up early. I stayed late. By doing those things, I was putting myself in a position to discover what it actually takes to stay clean. Because the way I feel emotionally, spiritually, and physically when I first get clean, if I'm not moving toward recovery, I'm moving back toward a fucking relapse. For me, there's no middle ground. So my responsibility became simple. Make meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps, be involved. And eventually I discovered something incredible. The solution to the life I was living was already contained in the 12 steps. Everything I tried to find in drugs, everything I was trying to numb, everything I was trying to escape, the way out was through the steps. And I learned something early on. The only wrong way to do the steps is not doing them. Taking responsibility for my recovery meant taking responsibility for my life. And let me tell you something. At 19 years old, when I started feeling good after being clean for 6 or 9 months, I thought I had this thing figured out. Today, that feels like the blink of an eye. Back then, it felt like forever. I still have my 9-month key tag, and the ink is practically rubbed off of it because I used to sit in meetings just rubbing it between my fingers, nervous and anxious. People would come up to me and say, "Are you okay?" I'd say, "Yeah, I'm fine." But they'd look at me and say, "You look angry." I was fucking angry. I was scared. I was uncomfortable in my own damn skin. The energy inside of me was so darn negative. But there were people in those rooms who had been exactly where I was, and they had found a way out. So they showed me something I had never experienced before. They showed me love, they showed me patience, they showed me tolerance, they showed me compassion. And they helped me learn how to help myself. And the amazing thing is, recovery hasn't really changed much since then. It's still the same simple stuff. Either I'm practicing the program in my life, or I'm not. Either I'm accepting the truth about who I am and taking responsibility for my life, or I'm not. But I'll tell you something funny. The responsibilities in my life have grown tremendously. And one day, I had this realization. It was never going to get easier than the moment I realized it wasn't going to get easier. That's a wild realization, right? Because when you're clean, there's no going back to the fantasy of having no responsibility. Getting clean means showing up for life. It means going to school, getting a job, paying bills, learning how to be a father, learning how to ask questions, learning how to listen to people with experience. The literature tells us we tend to live what we believe, so we go to people who seem reasonably happy. Because if someone's sitting in the room miserable, angry, and bitter, that's probably not the person you want to ask for life advice in that moment. But the beautiful thing about Dene is the group. The group is the most powerful vehicle we have. Because when I come into a meeting, I'm not just hearing one person's experience. I'm hearing the collective experience of the entire group. And that message keeps people alive. It became my higher power. Over the years, a lot has changed in my life. But the main thing hasn't. Don't get me wrong. I still fall short. I still make mistakes. I'm still a work in progress. But I made a decision a long time ago. The solution to my life is this program. The 12 steps are the solution for me. They may not be the only solution in the world, but they're the solution I chose. And I've learned something. When I'm doing good things, I usually feel good. And when I stop doing those things, I don't. This program also taught me something else. I'm not the center of the universe. The triangle of self-obsession says we must grow up or die. That means moving from a place of total self-centeredness to a place where I understand something very real. Nobody is going to live my life for me. People will hug me, people will say they love me, but nobody is going to go to work for me. Nobody is going to pay my bills. Nobody is going to raise my kid. That's my responsibility. And the truth is, addiction was appealing because it gave me an escape from responsibility. It gave me an excuse to say, fuck it. But today, I don't have that excuse anymore. I have a life. I have responsibilities. And I have a program that shows me how to live that life. The key for me is surrender. Surrender just means acknowledging the truth. I am an addict. When I acknowledge the truth, I open myself up to the solution that's been there all along. And when I do that, I don't have to carry everything alone anymore. I can turn it over to God, to a higher power, or to these rooms. And that gives me the strength to face things honestly, whether it's a fourth step, a mistake I made, or just life showing up the way life does. Because I'm not perfect, not even close. But I have a foundation today. I believe in this program. I believe in a power greater than myself. and I believe in the people in these rooms. That's what allows me to keep showing up, one day at a time. So I guess I'll end with that. My name is Rob. I'm still an addict, and recovery is still my responsibility. Thanks for letting me share. If this hit you, like, share, and follow the Inner Fix for real talk on mental health, addiction, and recovery, because your healing deserves a voice, and your story isn't over yet.